Hi friends, my name is Gorilla and welcome back. Today I'll be back with a 26 Gambit that was done on this week. It was a really great key, even with a few mess ups here or there, but I kind of went against my advice of not playing Kyrian, but it worked out in the end, so I hope you enjoy. So we're gonna start this key by doing a slightly larger than average pull compared to most weeks, but that's mostly just chalked up to one being a Tyrannical week, and also we just have a really good AoE comp, so might as well. Just gonna touch it off the fish stick right here. But on pulls like these, and for this whole first area, really most of the areas entirely in this dungeon, it's mostly just tank damage. Except for like this Goliath, for example, where we will have to do a little bit of healing to the group whenever the stomps go out, but for the most part, we can deal with it. Everyone's dropping a little low. That's kind of how the second stomp goes. Third one, we will have defenses up though, so we should be fine. Something that's really nice of how this tank was pulling as well, for me at least, was that it kind of let me be able to trickle in my CDs. A lot of tanks, what they do with me specifically is they kind of stop between packs. There's not much chain pulling, which means that my woo into Chi-Ji is a little weak, but this tank really likes to go one pack into the next and kind of combine the two, so I got massive value off that. This pull is wrapping up, and this route was actually kind of interesting, to be honest. We did a little bit of an untraditional route where we did this middle area first, and then we went right and then back to left, which is a little weird, but I can see why we did it, to be honest. Just finishing up this now, and we're gonna move on to the next pack. And something that's really nice of Kyrian in this first part, and something I kind of mentioned in my guide, is that this first area is really good for Kyrian, mainly because it's all tank damage, and 3 envelopings are of course really good for tank healing. And also the dot is just really nice in massive mob packs like these. Something that's really nice as well with Mistweavers in this specific dungeon is that we have a lot of utility that can be used in many ways. So for example, we can use our Rops to actually bring them back in, or we can use Rops to help the tank kite. We can use Para to help stop the fish sticks, or we can also use Para to stop them from running. There's just so many uses, it's really cool. This will be another easy Inspire pack. There's not really much going on. So we're going to use Kyrian kind of just as another damage CD here, just for the dot specifically, and also Chi-Ji melees, I guess. And something to mention, it's something I'm not really doing. You can actually just use Manatee really whenever you want in these types of areas. You're not really going to need to use it, in all honesty, in other areas. It's just better just to maybe conserve a little bit of mana while you're spinning, but that's something I normally forget about, to be honest. Then after this pack, we are going to move on to the next side. Which, to be honest, I actually really like this route. I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. But it felt really good, especially this week with the Inspire. Now we're moving on to another pack with a Scalebinder. Normally I'm the one who has to get most of them, but considering our entire group can actually get all the Scalebinders as well, it wasn't really as much of a me job this one time. We have Pally Stun, we have another Monk Stun, we have Survival Hunter Stun. There's plenty of ways to get around it, which is really cool. So once the Scalebinder's dead, we can easily chain in a lot of Inspired, so right here. Nothing really that threatening. Except for a few runners, which normally I just like to wrap out so you don't go out of range. You can also incap or stun them, but normally I like to save those things for Scalebinders. If you see right here, I'm not really even healing myself when I'm that low, and mostly the reason why is just because I know I don't need to in this pack. It is just going to be tank damage. Getting Earther was also kind of a blunder, by the way. I really just should have targeted Woe for us, but I really wanted to spin. That's what I do best. We got another runner, so I'm just going to bring it in range so we don't have to deal with it running into the water. And now we probably get to one of the dumbest things I've actually ever done, to be honest, instead of key. This is probably the biggest blunder. Like, I basically just invis-pot way too early. I could have waited probably a good 10 seconds before I could actually invis-pot. But it's just going to make me screwed. So right here I'm going to try to solve my issue by using Invis-Belt, but it doesn't work out for me as the Invis-Belt fails right now. And it just totally fails on me. And then my second blunder, I'm not going to wait for the pally, and instead I'm just going to release, because I know we have a Warlock. It's at this point, the whole group is just kind of laughing with me, like, oh, you're such a goofball. You're an idiot. Just really only, I don't know, scratched off probably 15 seconds or something, which is really not good, but what can you do? We all make mistakes. So we're onto this boss now, and to be honest, this boss is really not too tricky no matter the week, but it is very dependent on your DPS for the most part. And we'll see why in just a little bit, as I do kind of get owned. But for the most part, I do like to keep Brems up during this fight. I know some people don't, but personally I do. So right there, I think I actually got bolted, which I don't even know how I lived that bolt. Nice, we're back to the phase. So just try and get as much damage as we can. And those purifying bursts are mostly where most of the damage is going to go out. So that's kind of when you want to use CDs technically. Our CDs are a little awkward on this fight because, to be honest, unless there's major mistakes, there's not that much healing to be done. But we're just going to make sure that those things do not empower the boss, which is just done by stunning. Using defenses when we need to, and we should be fine. Another nice thing you can do in this fight is a person with the beam, you can Tiger's Lust, especially for Warlocks or other kind of immobile classes. Makes it a little easier for them. Yep, right there I get bolted. Couldn't really do anything about it. That's more of an issue on our DPS. And I'm just kind of flustered at this point. I'm like, oh god, what the hell happened? I kind of forget my job, which is to do the console. I'm kind of an idiot. But we get to it. It's always fun to see how they scramble. From this point on, it's pretty simple. There's not many exciting things to do in this fight, honestly, for us. So once again, we're going to bring them in. They don't empower the boss, and then we're going to start stunning soon enough. This fight's actually kind of fun as Kyrian, because if you do line up your CDs properly, you can get even more CDR from Mikanikos, but it's kind of hard to do. So now I get it. And normally I just like to roll out and then kind of get to a better spot. I don't really like to clog up the middle most of the time. Going into transition now. And so at this point, when the boss is this low, you really don't have to use any CDs, especially considering how the next pull is normally, most of the time at least, like super massive. And like at that point right there, I was kind of confused. I'm like, wait, is it on me? Am I to have an orb? But it was just someone else. So at this point, I'm literally just trying to save CDs for the most part. Even though it is a Tyrannical week, I know the next pull is scary no matter what week. So this boss is finally done. A little bit of a scary end, but it was okay. And I move on to probably the scariest pull in the whole dungeon, but somehow, and weirdly enough, it is the pull that actually doesn't wipe many groups anymore. There's actually a pull later on that normally wipes people, which is really funny to think about. Thankfully, I did not get the bug where my whole screen goes white. I've actually never gotten that bug. I think I've been very lucky. But this is another pull where it's almost all just tank damage, honestly, which is something that Kyrian really shines in. And so the main thing here, you mainly just want to be dodging the swirlies, since most people don't interrupt them. Most people interrupt bolts instead. And then once all these deckhands get to 50%, you want to stun. And so you can really stun using many methods. Most of the time, I just like to sweep, but if there's only one that's doing it, you can just in-cap. But that pull went really, really smooth. Never pull, and during this section, we're mostly just going to be changing CDs from pack to pack, so one pack will use Chi-Ji, another will use Kyrian. Kind of just standard procedure. So now we're gonna CC this inspired, because it is a little scary, and we're actually gonna double pull. I must say, this tank was quite brave, especially for a paladin. I don't see many paladins this season, but the ones I have seen, they are quite bold, which I love. So this pull is really deceptive. It looked really easy, but to be honest, it was pretty damn tough, all things considered. So I'm giving them space right here. Normally with Quaking, I don't like to be the guy in the middle. I normally like to be the guy that kind of gives them room. As much as I think Kyrian really relies on being on melee, for the most part, you can still get your Gust of Mist stacks when you're kind of out of melee range, so it's completely fine. So now we're going to pull this mob into the boss, which is honestly a really weird decision in my opinion. I feel like it never really works out all too well, except that it actually works out pretty well here, to be honest, but The other times I've actually tried this, it's just been kind of a mess. But for tips on this fight, and from what I can really say is this fight is really hard for Kyrian technically, although I think it's just hard for Mistweavers in general. So our main strategy here is we're going to be kind of close to the tank, and we're going to be kind of near the sides as well, so we have not many chances to actually get in trouble with the tail. And then we're going to try to help the tank with CCs in order to get the mobs in. And so this is what I was talking about in my Kyrian guide about why the second boss kind of pushes Kyrian out of this dungeon, to be honest. And it's mainly just because this is a really tough fight. You really cannot get good melee uptime most of the time, especially with how melee heavy of a meta it is. But we can try to make it work, and that's really what I like to do. Then we can finally get in. I'm going to bubble myself for this shot. Just alleviate a little bit of the damage I would normally have to heal. Something that is nice at Kyrian though is if you do get Hooktailed, you kind of have a little bit of wiggle room because you do have file, or you should have file, which makes it a little easier, but you still shouldn't be hooked at all. Yeah, as you can tell, me and my survival are really not having fun on this boss. So I'm going to CC to help them kind of stay close together. Then also Rop right there to make sure that they all get in. Man, I got a lot of anchor shots, holy moly. Never realized that actually. It's also a really fun perspective because, like, in the moment, this fight felt actually, like, really quick, but, like, looking back at the footage, man, this thing was lasting quite a long time. Right there, I make a little bit of a mistake. I used my Rop a little too late, which is a little unfortunate, but now we can just stun and we can hopefully get them in. So like my ad did not get in, but that's okay. Just gonna bubble the hunter to make sure he's safe, and I'm just gonna try to kite my ad up. I'm really trying to get in though for a touch of death, even though I'm kiting, because that's just who I am. I am a greedy player. And there we go. Just looking at the timer, it's a little tight to be honest, but overall it's still just timeable. If we just play safe and we play well, we will time this key, guaranteed. We just can't really have any major fuck-ups. Skipping that one main guy, and then we're going to go into a double pull. This pull is one of the pulls that I think has failed over half my Gambit keys, to be honest. People are really bad at these type of pulls for some reason. We do take it pretty safe, to be honest, compared to most groups. Most groups go straight into a double. We kind of just warmed up into it, I guess you could say. I'm going to route them in, just so they're a little more compact. Makes it a little easier for stuns. My Chi-Chi will also bleed for my Woo, which is kind of nice, but it wasn't really needed because of her. Really enough with that ROP. That ROP actually worked, which for these mobs, normally ROP barely even works on it, so it's actually really interesting to see. So now I move on to one of my favorite mobs in the dungeon, actually. It's pretty fun to heal. All the damage going out is, of course, during the pulse, but it's a pretty fun healing challenge. It's kind of like a preamble to the Collapsing Star, which I actually really like. Now we're going to chain in. Unfortunately, our Warlock got owned by the frontal there. Happens to the best of us, though. This will be our trinket, and then we'll just start DPSing. Something to note as well, don't be afraid to use like any short CDs here, to be honest. It really does show, though, how much of a difference a Warlock makes, even in single target. Man, this thing is lasting a long time without him. So at this point, I kind of see what my tank is nudging at, I guess you could say, and he really wants to pull in the boss with this, which, to be honest, I'm actually fine with. He's definitely creeping up, though. He really wants to do it. And right there, I'm just typing out a message because, in my opinion, I think that DPS should do the star for the healer in second phase. It's a really hard mechanic for healers, especially melee healers. So, it just makes sense. At the start of this, we are going to pop Chi-Ji. If you want to feel comfortable, you could actually just wait for Chi-Ji for the first star, but I decided to just send it. That's my specialty, of course, sending. First star is out. We have a little bit of Chi-Ji left. So we're going to try to abuse that just for a second. And we will use Kyrian as well. Kyrian's pretty nice in stars, honestly. As I said, if you can get an exceptional range player, Kyrian's actually pretty damn good. But you really need to stretch your limit. And this fight really does signify the, I guess, debate over Kyrian or venthyr, where I believe that Kyrian is just a better playstyle, but even on fights like this, I must lie, it is a lot more work to get the basically same results as venthyr. But I'm actually okay with that as a player because I find the challenge actually more enjoyable and fun. We are going to get a second collapsing star in this first phase, and this one will be a little more sketch because we don't really have any CDs, we don't have Revival, we don't have Kyrian, we do not have Chi-Ji. So it's really just for Rem Cleave that we can do anything. Thankfully, as you can see, Rem and Essence Font on their own, they are pretty much doing a lot of the work for me, which is really nice. I was probably a little too greedy on that, to be honest. If I found a prop high tank, that person would have died. And the thing is with this boss is the stars, even though they are on a timer, they're on a 30-second timer, so it's not really that big of a deal if you do them a little slower. Now we're moving on to the phase. Most of the time how I see pugs handle this transition and the next transitions is they kind of just pick a corner or they pick a spot like I'm going to get this star on this quadrant, and it normally works out. And I think this fight's also another important point to bring up, which, to be honest, I'm actually starting to think of using Spirit of the Crane on fights like these, just simply for the fact that I don't find Mana Tea to be that useful for our current playstyle. Even on fights like this where it technically should get the most value, I feel like Spirit of the Crane is just so good when you just triple Tiger Palm. As you see, the range is going to help out, and I actually did a little bit of prep work, so it gets a lot easier. So that star's basically done. I'm actually surprised I did not get hit by anything there. That's a real shocker. That quaking timing was so bad because I really wanted to heal that warlock, but I couldn't. Alright, so we're on to another phase. First one we do have Chi-Ji up is a godsend. Just using base Chi-Ji on this fight is a lot easier than using Weapons of Order to get maximum value, to be honest. This one we are using Chi-Ji. I'm kind of delaying a few things there, to be honest. I think at that point I did realize I don't really need to prep all too much at this key level. Which is really weird to say, but it's just the truth. We're gonna move on to another phase soon. I decided to just safety revival there. I feel like everyone's dropping kind of low, so it's better to be safe than sorry. At this point, I'm actually, funny enough, worried about the timer, and the main reason why is just it's looking a little short for the damage we're doing, which at first I was really concerned about my damage, but after looking, it's actually pretty good, to be honest, compared to what I've seen other people do. But you know, this star is actually really close, so I could have technically done this one with Kyrian, just by myself, but this guy's a rock star, he just wants to help me out. Sacrifice a little bit of his damage to help me out, which is really nice. And we're really just trying to finish this off. Warlock there gets owned. Just happens to the best of us again. It's highly unlucky. That's the thing about keys. Sometimes things just don't go your way, and that's okay. I'm gonna defensive right here. Make sure the dot doesn't kind of truck me. And now it's gonna get really scary, so I even bubble myself. And I hope everyone else uses defensives. I'm out of mana. I'm scared, but the boss is at such low HP that doesn't matter. This key's in the bag. I was jumping in joy. This is my first bit of IO, really, for the week, so it felt really good. But anyways, thanks for watching. My name is Gorilla, and catch you in the next one. Peace.